Morning. Okay, we're recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. This will be episode 201 when it goes up on our YouTube channel. We can make these webinars very inexpensive for you thanks to our Patreon supporters. If you would like to join a cool community for free or the paid version, check it out. Patreon.com/CXCC. We've got levels as low as $1 a month. And thanks to the Patreons for funding these adventures, because I am writing these webinars just for all of you. And this is a brand new one. I wrote this. I think there's only a couple of slides some of you will recognize. The rest is all new, and I finished it this morning. So welcome to Improving Design Sprints and Their Outcomes. Let me switch over to my PowerPoint controls. Alrighty. So in case you don't know me, hi, I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. I've been a strategist in CX and UX, consultant, researcher, designer, trainer, you name it, for let's just say decades. Delta CX is a full-service CX and UX consultancy and agency. We do lots of projects, training, workshop speaking, whatever we can do to help companies improve their customer centricity, raise that CX and UX maturity, and really improve their product strategy. That's why clients call me Mary Poppins. I fly in, fix everything I can, sing a few songs, and fly away to where I'm needed most. Again, note that, as usual, these are the rules. I tend to say CX and UX interchangeably. If I say one, I mean both. I don't want to die on the hill of who is a customer and who is a user, and everybody's in our ecosystem and we need their business and their money. And I have brought back everybody's favorite, the camera icon. This is a little bit better when I do live talks, but just in case you're a screenshot it type of person, the camera icon on the bottom means this slide is done animating and it's a great time to take a picture of it. Oh yeah, and don't forget to join our online communities. We've got free Slack and Discord communities. We now have the Patreon, which is free and not free. Check it all out at deltacx.com/links. So in order to improve design sprints, we should first consider why we're even doing a design sprint. Now, here are some of the common desired outcomes after a design sprint. Get answers to complicated problems, solve big challenges, find product market fit, reduce the risk of bringing a new product to market, create higher quality products that better meet target audiences' needs, validate ideas. But warning, if you aim to validate an idea, you will validate that idea. It's easy to create the prototype and the experiment that tell us this is a good idea and let's run with it. Another desired design sprint outcome is often innovation. Did we really invent something new, something never before seen? Not just a better version of what we already have or what our competitor is doing, but true innovation? And remember to ignore fluffy desired outcomes like fun, communication, teamwork, alignment, etc. These aren't really special to design sprints and can and should happen in pretty much all of our processes. Design sprints are often described as a low-risk way to try ideas out and learn the right direction for projects. But I would like to remind everybody that they really are high risk. If any aspect of a design sprint was done poorly or manipulated, we can end up spending a lot of time and money going in a very wrong direction. And let's look at a couple of causes of these risks, because these are hopefully things we will talk more about on our teams and improve so that we can lower that risk. Speed over quality. Design sprints aren't anywhere close to research and development, R&D, HCD, human-centered design. Or is something going on in the chat? Is everything okay? Oh, the screen isn't shared? Oh my goodness. Thank you. Don't forget, thank you everybody for helping me out with that. I will roll back. I want to mention, don't forget that we're recording this. And sorry, last time I started with my screen shared and I forgot I hadn't done it. Thanks to all of you for saving me from myself. Let me see. Was there anything exciting on the previous slide? Probably not. think it was just words. Yeah, definitely cry emoji. Yeah, it was just words. So you didn't miss much there. A lot of the slides are mostly words on this one. So as I was saying, let's talk about the high risk of design sprints. Again, these are just words. You're not missing anything on the slides yet. If you are walking your dog and watching this on YouTube later, you're not missing much. And you're not looking at the screen. So remember, design sprints can be quite risky because they're really just about doing something fast, and quality is sometimes sacrificed because this isn't research and development. It's not human-centered design. It's not user-centered design. And again, that's our goal. We're trying to just be fast. So design sprints often exclude thorough processes of research, discovery, great design work, realistic prototype and prototyping, and good usability testing. So we must consider the risks of being fast, but possibly being inaccurate or bad. We've got the risks of being what I call customer peripheric, the opposite of customer centric. The risk of brainstorming what we want users to do with little or no regard for what they actually want or need to do. We want them to buy more often, sign up more licenses, and stay with our company longer. But how we accomplish this should be highly strategic. What is our strategy? Does it have the customer at the center? A good strategy is deeper than just a list of ideas or features, and we'll probably get more of the business outcomes we want when we create the products and services that best match customers. Hippo influence. Is there a leader, high paid person, or toxic narcissist in the room for some or all of your design sprint? Unless amazingly facilitated, your design sprint is probably toast. That person might be dominant, insist that we work from their ideas, or insist that their opinions are facts we must all accept as truth. This adds plenty of risk to your design sprint. We also have the risk of doing so much by committee. We don't do product management, engineering, marketing, or other work by committee. Why do we believe it's better or lower risk to have teammates who are not design experts doing human-centered design tasks? If we haven't done great qualitative research first, design sprints are mostly opinions, guesses, and assumptions. We think users need this. We think users do or don't do this for a guessed or assumed reason. Now, let's guess at what solves that. This is a guessing lasagna. If any layer of guessing, assuming, or going with our gut feeling ends up being wrong, it can send our project and product in the wrong direction. And another risk, the problem isn't a real or valid problem. We guessed at what a problem might be. We asked a few people if it's a problem. They said yes. Now we think we validated the problem and we can run a design sprint to figure out the solution. One key thing we'll need to be clear about when trying to improve design sprints is what I like to call EDK versus OGA. Evidence, data, and knowledge versus opinions, guesses, and assumptions. If we want to be clearer on what we wish we knew and what information we're missing, consider running my discovery phase knowledge quadrant exercise long before a design sprint. You can find a whole webinar on this by searching YouTube for CXCC 196, since it was episode 196 on our YouTube channel. A design sprint might be fun teamwork, and we might feel like we're solving problems and challenges. But if we don't have good evidence, data, and knowledge about target users and their tasks, knowledge, habits, perspectives, and needs, we could be setting ourselves up for failure. Working from guesses and opinions is ultimately inefficient. We can build what a stakeholder tells us to build or the cool idea the product manager has, but if it isn't based on great customer intelligence, that risk is still high. We could end up being far from agile or far from lean when we have to make changes, redo things, or in really bad cases, roll back to an old version. So without reliable and recent data that helps us understand who, what, where, when, why, and how, we're probably guessing. That can make your design sprint the guessing lasagna, where we're guessing what people need and guessing what solves what we assumed was their problem. Don't forget, episode 196. So, the design sprint shouldn't start without deep and recent qualitative research. Research insights and documentation should include problem statements. Now that we've researched our target audiences, we understand tasks, needs, pain points, and issues from their perspectives. But there are good and bad problem statements. Good problem statements are solution agnostic. We're just quickly describing the problem without indicating what should or might solve it. A good problem statement example might be: customer support reports that people have trouble finding what they need from our search results. Another might be: salespeople said customers are downgrading or leaving because we don't have collaboration features they need. Now, we might not know which features, and we might hold a design sprint to start sketching some screens. But remember that it would be better to work first from qualitative research data. Our problem statement should come from good qualitative research data. And any solution we eventually create should be based on what we learned about people and their context, tasks, and needs. Beware of bad problem statements like, how do we get people to do more of what the business hopes they'll do? Okay, it might not be phrased that way, but you all know what I mean. What about, how do we nudge people so we can show an improved business metric? Or, I think people need graphs that look like this. Let's validate that. Or anything that lacked evidence, data, and knowledge, came from opinions, guesses, or assumptions, or a survey, or we workshopped a guess at the problem. Sorry, I got a weird message. Okay. Don't forget, everybody, this is being recorded and you might want to turn off cameras, just a recommendation. But up to you. You are welcome to be a sub-star of the show when it goes up on YouTube. Okay, so problem statements. Now, jumping off from that, since I know Karen was asking the other day about, well, how do you know this? Someone on LinkedIn, who remembers this post from a month or so ago, someone posted to LinkedIn saying they had solved a problem after running a design sprint. They might even create a startup because travelers have problems with toothpaste and toothbrushes. Does anybody remember this post? Emojis up. I don't even know if the emojis are recorded. So I'm going to quote the way that they wrote their problem statement. Ana Lucia remembers it. Okay, so their problem statement says, okay, lots of people remember. Great. Quote, the separate toothbrush and toothpaste setup has been a persistent issue for individuals on the move, especially while traveling. Juggling two separate items not only occupies valuable space in travel bags, but also leads to spills and messes, causing inconvenience and unhygienic situations. This results in travelers compromising on their oral care routine, which can have adverse effects on their dental health. Furthermore, the lack of a proper storage solution for toothbrushes in hotels, hostels, and other travel destinations exposes them to unhygienic surfaces, posing additional health risks. End quote. This sounds like a good problem statement, but is it true? Is this a real problem statement that doesn't have any good, efficient, effective, or inexpensive solutions? Are toothpaste tubes exploding as people travel? Are toothbrushes and toothpastes a serious problem for travelers? And is it a problem that they're separate? How do we know that? Is this problem so bad that people are stopping brushing their teeth regularly and causing dental problems for themselves? And how do we know this? And have you ever had a problem fitting a toothbrush into your travel bag, or your toothbrush was taking up too much valuable travel space? It's strange, but none of these seem like real problems, or at least a serious challenge that people had trouble solving themselves quickly and cheaply. What about solid toothpaste? That won't spill or be messy. What about a toothbrush cover or case? The images on the screen are Google search results for solid toothpaste and toothbrush covers. These are usually small toothbrush covers. I use them. And they'll protect your toothbrush from everything. And who said you have to put your toothbrush face down on a dirty sink in a hostel? Put it back in this case and put it in your travel bag. If you are that worried about dental hygiene while traveling, have you really not found solutions? You just stopped brushing out of fear of spills and unhygienic surfaces? You will be unsurprised that the design sprint created a plastic toothbrush with replaceable proprietary plastic parts while claiming it was sustainable. Good news, the person behind it also claimed it'll reduce plastic waste, yet it sounds full of plastic waste. It still had no cover for the part you're going to put in your mouth, and it appears to require proprietary toothpaste tablets. This is one of endless examples reminding us that even a fun design sprint that ends with an interesting idea can be a failure because the problem wasn't a real problem likely to be experienced by enough people to have a target market. Just because we invented use cases doesn't mean it's a real problem. A solution looking for a problem can lead us to design sprint failure. Um, I'm trying to see. Shweta says, how did they assume this had adverse impacts on dental health? Right. Was this a long-term study? Ada says, I guess you're traveling with Matchbox for a suitcase. Ana Lucia says, do you need something special to store a toothbrush in the hotel? Yeah, exactly. So again, be careful. These can absolutely affect your design sprint and its outcomes. Don't bother running a design sprint on a fake or made up or not real problem or problem that's easily solved. Also, I often hear, hey, we're doing MVPs or design thinking or design sprints and we're prototyping and testing. Isn't that customer centric? There are 3 things to consider here. 1, if we know that including real and archetypal users during design testing, during our testing phase is important, did we research with real and archetypal users before we designed or came up with ideas? Very often, we did little or no research. Maybe we ran a survey. We worked from guesses. Someone asked a few customers what they want. Customer centricity means making sure we're building the right ideas in the right ways for real user needs and pain points. If we didn't start with that, then congrats on the testing portion of your design sprint, but I wouldn't consider that a customer-centric process. 2, the quality of the prototype. If we're creating websites, apps, or software, why are we showing people paper or wireframes you can't click on or minimally interactive prototypes that just click through a predefined path? It's called interaction design. We make prototypes to mock up and test the interaction. If you can't interact realistically with a prototype, I would suggest that it's not the right type of prototype to use for testing. A prototype should be a realistic model. Realistic doesn't have to mean full visual design and branding, but it does mean realistic interaction. If people can't fill out a form field, this isn't realistic. If you are popping up the next screen before someone chose to see that screen, this wasn't realistic. I know people love Sketch and Figma and whatever will replace them, but I still suggest Acture for realistic prototyping. To learn it for free, find my Acture playlist on the Delta CX YouTube channel. And 3, you are testing to evaluate a concept or design, but how is that testing planned, recruited, executed, analyzed, and interpreted? A design sprint typically rushes through anything that might look like great recruiting from our target audiences. Instead, we grab some people in our company or in a coffee shop, show them the idea, and if they say they like it, we're good. Showing the wrong people the wrong things and or asking the wrong questions and or coming to the wrong conclusions could be called testing, but it isn't good testing. It's not enough for a participant to eventually stumble through your design. We're testing for greatness, 5 stars out of 5, and that this really solves problems and unmet needs. So we need higher standards for our testing. You can't check prototypes and testing off a list and say, we're customer centric. The quality of this work matters. How it was done matters. Methods that are speed over quality are unlikely to be customer centric, even when they have small moments of involving customers. These common prototyping and testing mistakes can create more risk and waste. We'll look at, Karen, we'll look at your question after fictional examples. Can you be more specific? So, as design sprints tend to be focused more on speed than of the quality, and tend to want to rush something out, move fast over deeply understanding the problems we're solving, design sprints can be quite customer peripheral, not customer centric. So, let's look a little bit at the history of design sprints. Version 1 of design sprints devote a week to defining the problem, ideating, deciding which sketch is the winner, prototyping, and testing. Facilitators started finding problems with design sprints, so they created new versions that all exist at the same time. They don't replace each other. You can pick which version you want to do. Version 2 of design sprints don't allow workshop attendees to prototype or test. The design sprint is 2 days long and it's over after picking the winner. Prototyping and testing were deemed too important, so they're left to experts who report back later on how it went. Version 3 of design sprints removed everything related to defining the problem so that people aren't assuming, guessing, or going with what they think users do. Facilitators were finding that the problem a stakeholder presented often couldn't be validated. So, version 3 requires experts to do weeks of qualitative research before the design sprint. Observational studies, interviews, personas, journey maps, and other artifacts are not done as team exercises. Everything is then shown to design sprint attendees so they can understand the problem by digesting research data, diagrams, videos, and other artifacts that they're shown. One design sprint facilitation company sells version 3, starting with 6 weeks of research and then 4 weeks of planning before the design sprint. 10 weeks in, that doesn't feel much like a sprint. It sounds like we're just getting closer to doing human-centered design, but asking everybody to sketch ideas, which can make it look like your designers can't do their jobs themselves. Now, there is a design sprints version 4. It mostly looks like version 1, but only takes as little as an hour to go through the whole week of steps. Design sprints seem to assume that our team's biggest problem is that we're not fast enough. But I would suggest that if we were really looking at outcomes and customer experiences, we might realize that our biggest problem is that we're not good enough. We are speed over quality, and it shows. So if we were to remove everything that different versions of design sprints seem to know should not be done as a team or group exercise, the only thing we really have left is, after seeing research insights and actionable suggestions from researchers, everybody sketch solutions and vote on your favorites. So I feel like design sprints have been kind of devolving, but who's making these changes? It's not me. It's the agencies making wild money running design sprints. Like any good capitalists, they want to make money and look good by creating better outcomes for clients. Evidently, better outcomes happen when you take tasks away from the design sprint attendees. So here are some of my orange action slides. What can we do? What about these new versions of design sprints? If your company insists on doing design sprints, try mixing some of these newer versions and making some modifications. For example, from version 3, first have your most qualified researchers plan and conduct qualitative research to answer our open questions and replace opinions, guesses, and assumptions with evidence, data, and knowledge. From version 2, let the experts do the prototyping and testing. Make sure you're using the right prototyping method and level of realism so that good usability testing can tell us if this idea solves our original customer-focused problem statement. Experts doing the testing will ensure that we don't think that showing people a sketch and asking if they like it is validation. And go ahead and modify the design sprint further by changing let's change what voting is about. Instead of voting for your favorite, which may or may not be the best solution for customers, what if we voted on what we thought was a top priority? Ultimately, the voting is just theater, since your team should have a standardized method for prioritization. But voting gives people the psychological satisfaction of voting. You can also vote on which idea you think best solves the customer's problem. Ask attendees why they believe a particular solution is the best solution for the customer. Pass all the ideas to designers and let people know they'll all be considered whether or not they want to vote. You can also brainstorm ideas without sketching or wireframing or design. Let's unpack that one a little more. When it comes to brainstorming with your smaller or larger team, I'm not a fan of commonly used workshops. I'm concerned about anything that makes strategizing or designing customer experiences look like 5 easy steps. But that doesn't mean that all group brainstorming is bad. But I want to mostly avoid three things in any sort of brainstorming or workshop session. One is people brainstorming when they don't fully understand the problem or the target audiences. The second is asking attendees to draw screens or specific executions of their idea. And the third is having people vote on what they like or what their favorite is. Once everybody has complete customer knowledge, including all of our qualitative and quantitative data, insights, and documentation, if we're looking for ideas and possible solutions from others, we can certainly plan an exercise. I recommend the simple template on the screen, which has 3 columns for ideas where you can place sticky notes. The first column is for any idea that is likely to satisfy business goals or objectives, but doesn't help our customers or might even work against them. The middle column is for any idea that is likely to meet or exceed customers' needs, but doesn't satisfy business goals or might even work against them. The third column is for any win-win ideas, things that improve user experiences and meet the needs of both the business and our customers. I'm not going to suggest that we never do any of the ideas from the first 2 columns because they're not win-win, but I would want our team to have some good self-awareness when we're moving forward with an idea that benefits only one party. This requires special attention and possibly an entry in our risk documentation when we're choosing ideas from the first column and knowingly selecting ideas that might be customer peripheral. On this board, we only want to capture ideas and concepts. They might be rough and incomplete, but we want to stay away from people playing CX or UX designer or feeling like they have to be good at sketching or wireframing to express themselves. Some people are more visual thinkers and might prefer to sketch a screen, but these people are welcome to sketch on scrap paper and then describe the idea on a sticky note on the board. Again, we need to remind attendees that the description of the idea should be short and not necessarily go into the details of exactly how the interface looks or works. We'll leave it to our CX or UX designers to come up with the best executions of the best ideas. So, what do workshops cost our company? This is another way to think about improving design sprints and their outcomes. I've got on the screen some ways that we can calculate what design sprint workshops cost us because I've rarely seen this done. And so if we want to improve them, we should take a look at what they're costing and how that works for us. Was the feature ever released? What did our total efforts cost? And what benefits or revenue did we gain? Which KPIs were met or exceeded? How did the customers perceive these features after they went live? What problems did we have to fix after launch or release? You should know the actual cost and ROI for a design sprint or workshop or team exercise. You should also know how many of these workshops you're doing versus how many of the resulting ideas ever get to market. I have about 3 more slides and then I'll take all of your questions. Thanks for your patience. And if you're watching the video later, please leave your questions in the YouTube comments and I'm happy to answer them personally. Okay, another orange action slide. One of the best ways to stay on top of our design sprints and make sure they're worth the time and money we put into them is to have clear success criteria for each design sprint. We know what outcomes we wanted or expected. That was in an early slide. But did any of that happen? And oh, the orange looks a bit brown to me. Okay, depending upon how you see color, this could be orangey brown. Rolling back a little bit, we know what outcomes we wanted or expected. We showed them on an earlier slide, but did any of that happen? And in what amount of time? At what costs? Sometimes even something that's successful isn't worth the time or money spent, so we must calculate all of this carefully. Our success criteria might ask, did we innovate? Did we invent something completely new, never before seen? What about, did we find real answers to complicated problems? Warning, are our answers really just guesses or opinions? Did we achieve product market fit? How long did that take? Did the winning idea never go to market? Did we investigate why that failed and how to avoid that waste again? What can we measure that will tell us later that we solved customer or user problems or needs well? Warning, don't just measure business-focused metrics like conversion rates. What about, is customer satisfaction up? Is customer loyalty or retention up? Is customer support utilization down? So pay close attention to which design sprints are truly successes. Keep a scorecard of what each costs in time and money, and the longer arc of where it failed or how long it took to succeed. If your design sprints are mostly fast and inexpensive successes, as the method tends to promise you'll have, then this is great. It's really working for your company. If your design sprints are often small or large failures, especially slow failures that burn time and money before the team has to give up, then consider if this is the best method for what you're trying to achieve. One of the best, sorry, I said that. To improve design sprints, so here's a few more slides on suggestions, and then we'll wrap up and take questions. First, check if the design sprint is the right method to use. There's a lot in product, engineering, marketing, etc., that we could do by committee or in workshops, but we don't. Should CX, UX, product strategy, or design be by committee or workshop? Maybe, maybe not. Research first and don't skimp. Run the DPKQ exercise from episode 196. Have qualified researchers plan and conduct qualitative research, preferably observational, with target customers. Experts, subject matter experts, SMEs, and non-target audience rarely represent our audience as well, so don't rely on them. Research must be, I'm missing a word on the slide, disregard that. They must be solution agnostic. Don't start with an idea or hypothesis and then run the research that might prove this is a good idea, or the research that will find the audience that likes the idea. Understand problems and people before you invent solutions, and avoid the guessing lasagna. Remember that our opportunities will come from what we learn in qualitative research. Don't start with a guess or a business need and turn it into a how might we. How might we is bizarrely focused on we and is often a solution pretending to be a question. Try skipping how might we. Make sure you have customer-centric problem statements based on evidence, data, and knowledge, and not opinions, guesses, or assumptions. Some more improvements. Check if we understand problems, tasks, and mental models from the user's perspectives. Do we have those well-written problem statements that are from the user's perspective? Don't spend time on guessed or non-actionable diagrams or artifacts. Don't storyboard. We know that when we create a great solution, people will dance with their dogs and be delighted. Don't create an empathy map. We don't really know what people thought or felt, but we do know what they did and said. That's already in our research insights and deliverables. Don't lock yourself into the MVP or smallest set of features. First, consider the best solution. The smallest version might not be a good solution. And finally, any design sprint, design thinking workshop, or UX exercise must be facilitated by someone from design, UX, CX, service design. It says design right there in the name. A design sprint should be owned and controlled by design specialists. Don't let non CX or non UX roles plan, facilitate, or run design sprints. And thank you for attending. That's it for the slides. And now we'll spend just another maybe 5-10 minutes answering some questions. Thank you. Thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll take a look. Let me see if there's any questions in the Q&A. I don't think so. That's fine. You can ask them in the chat. Let me roll back the chat. Thank you, Adair. Okay, so Karen said, what if people created fictional examples like this for their portfolios, like the toothbrush? I often come across problems like this in portfolios. I think it depends what job you're applying for and who you think is reviewing it. If you're trying to show me what an amazing problem solver you are, I'm probably not going to feel that vibe if you have a really strange problem statement and a really strange solution, whether or not you ran a design sprint. If you're trying to impress someone who runs design sprints and you want to show how you ran a design sprint, maybe it does impress them. Maybe if that's a focus of a job you're looking for, you can get that job. So I think it really depends what you're applying for and who you believe is going to consume that portfolio thing. Catherine says, how many people do you survey when you do a design sprint? I would probably say 0. There's no good reason to run surveys related to a design sprint. Very often people do run surveys related to design sprints, but I do recommend against them because, as we said earlier, risk. I am really worried about risk. I'm worried about the risk of what we don't know. I'm worried about the risk of a survey making us think an idea or direction we want to take is better than it is. You know, if I send you a survey and I say, have you ever had trouble with dental hygiene while traveling? You might think about that time your toothpaste leaked, that one time in the last 40 years, and you might say yes. Then we go, great, validated. Look at this. 78% of people we surveyed said they've had a problem with dental hygiene while traveling. Boom, we're onto it. And the problem is the survey is risky because if it's not really an amazingly written survey sent to the right people, interpreted well, it can be garbage data. Shweta says, would sprints be helpful in getting teams together to decide viability and technical feasibility once the UX team thinks through user problems like a prioritization activity? I would go with no, but I would go with yes for a prioritization activity. We talk about prioritization in both my book, Customers Know You Suck, and Larry even goes a little bit deeper on his. I got to keep this handier now. In his disruptive research book, he does talk about prioritization. So yes, you absolutely do want prioritization activities, but I wouldn't confuse those with design sprints. Design sprints are just something totally different with different aims. Catherine says, who should be attendees in design sprints? So if you go by the book, originally design sprints were meant to have, I think, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 attendees and your facilitator. Some companies use 2 facilitators. I don't know why, but I believe that typically your attendees are going to be your project team because again, it's really a group brainstorming exercise. It's a solution focused workshop. So the idea is if we understand what problem we're trying to solve, we're all going to get together and brainstorm solutions. So that's typically going to be your project team. There could be stakeholders, but again, you have to be careful as you start bringing in higher level people. They might have an influence or a vibe that can really mess up your meeting. So be careful. Sirocco says Larry has something to that, Shweta, where teams have to decide what they'll prioritize. Yes. Few people dropped off and said goodbye. Catherine says, have you ever seen a design sprint running alongside of process mapping when implementing a system within an organization? How would you work that together? Okay, so I think at this point, I feel like I've seen just about everything, but that doesn't mean that these things are things that I recommend or things that were done well. When you are doing, so again, a design sprint is usually a solution focused workshop. We have a problem or challenge we want to solve, and we're going to come up with solutions or sketches or screens that solve this problem. Process mapping is different. I would probably see process mapping as part of a service design approach. And very often, service design does have team workshops where you are working together with different people to map processes, not because it's processed by committee, but because different people in that meeting or workshop represent different parts of the process. And you want to make sure that you are accurately representing their parts of the process. So I would say that any sort of process mapping or service design workshop is a very different animal. Sorry, microphone. A very different animal than a design sprint, which again is really intended to be a sprint to design, to come up with solutions. Process mapping, really important, different animal. But great question. Tariq, good to see you, says, I think the main issue I usually find is I'm aware of all this, but design managers, design directors, and VPs are more keen in picking their battles or being happy that the org is using design function at all. How do I instigate the team to move past that? Show them this video. That could be one way to open up some conversations. And I think, again, one thing that I've said in the past about design sprints and design thinking and things like that is we thought that we were introducing people to design, but we've actually introduced them to what I like to call the Fisher-Price version. You know, we didn't really introduce them to human-centered design, which I do have a graphic I can try to put up of that. We introduced them to like these these really short, microscopic, quick, workshopped, rushed out versions. We didn't really introduce them, oh, it's over here, to this fuller process. Now, you could say, well, okay, maybe these design sprints or design thinking are a stepping stone to this longer process. And I say, okay, then start stepping. So I would say you have to ask yourself, yes, we want to be happy that people are talking about design, but are they being user-centric? Are they being customer-centric? Or are they using these meetings or exercises or workshops to just put their ideas out there or try to validate their own opinion or look like they have the best idea or figure out, do a guessing lasagna? So I would inspire your design managers, directors, and VPs. I'm glad you have that hierarchy. Hello, I hope you're watching. But I would inspire them, use your power, use your influence as a leader to now move on from anything that could accidentally or on purpose make other people see UX as a short, easy, hours long or days long thing that anybody can do if they have a template or a framework or a game of Twister. So we need to move past that if we want to make sure we're customer centric, because again, usually these quick and small versions of UX aren't really customer centric. They're the least UX we could do. So engineering has something to build. And so we have to ask your leadership and other people's leadership, is that quality? Is that customer centric? Does it match your company's values? Does it match the promises you've made to customers? If not, we need to have some tough conversations. And for our last question today, we're going to fit in Megs. Good to see you. Always interested in the ROI of design sprints online versus in person. It can be hard to quantify the benefits of getting everyone in a room, especially when the team is traveling far. Any thoughts on best practices or if one form relates to maturity? Yeah, I have a hard time finding ROI of design sprints, period. I've Googled this on and off for how many years now? And I have a really hard time finding solid ROI numbers. I tend to find fluffy stuff Everyone enjoyed the design sprint. We really felt camaraderie. And I don't usually find ROI. I don't find we spent X on design sprints. We later spent X on design and dev and merging and whatever. And then we had to spend X on customer support and fixing it, whatever. But wow, we gained so many customers and loyalty and higher CSATs and whatever. Wow, the design sprint sure was worth it. So I can't find ROI on anything. Now, as for remote versus in person, the problems that I have found with those in the past is when the people who are remote are treated as an afterthought. I was once in a design sprint in 2014 when it was being run on site at the company and they were using paper sticky notes on walls, and I was remote, and people were like trying to point their computer cameras, their laptop cameras at walls and send it back to me via video call. As you can imagine, that was a disaster. So if you are going to be doing a design sprint with, Schweitz says about a similar experience, and if you are going to be doing any sort of workshop, exercise, whatever it is, as soon as there is a sticky note, make sure there's something that is online, and do your best to also make it accessible, because another problem is paper sticky notes are not accessible. If you have a visual issue, you might not be able to read a sticky note even if you're there in the room. And unfortunately, even something like Miro is not always very accessible. So we have to make sure that we are not just making this work for people who are on site and off site, but also for people with varying disabilities, diagnoses, and conditions. Hybrid is hell. It definitely is. It can easily make the people who are remote feel like they are not involved, not as important. They don't jump in as much or speak up as much. We don't know how to include them. So I do think in general, it's best, even when I do workshops that are hybrid, I put everybody into Miro boards. And that way you don't have some people doing sticky notes on a wall and some people in a Miro board. Even if you are physically in my workshop and you're 3 feet from me, you are going into a Miro board. And that way we're all in the same tool, and we can have some of that consistency. All right, we are out of time. So thanks again. Remember, everybody, wrong side, cxcc.to/events. Check out our upcoming webinars. I'll be writing another one this weekend. I think Monday is going to be futurespective and risk mitigation workshop. So 2 more workshops that you can run with peeps if you love workshops. I generally don't, but these are 2 that I do like. That's going to be Monday. When our Wednesday webinar is going to be service design with Ricardo Martins. So I'm very excited to speak more with him about the role of service design in really making change and generating that ROI for companies. Let's see what's coming the week after that. Wednesday the 4th, I'm going to talk about what I believe continuous discovery research should look like if we care about quality over speed. Let's see what else. We've also got Wednesday, the 11th of October. That is going to be my webinar on impact maps. Some of these are reruns from things we've done on the other YouTube channel, but to a lot of you, it's content you haven't seen. So we're refreshing these. That will be called Tie Customer Needs to Business Impact and Get More Project Buy-in. All of these are free. So just go to cxcc.to/events and RSVP so you remember to come. And remember, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at CX-CC. And of course, Patreon. You Patreon paid members will get this recording in about 15 minutes. Everybody else will get it in about 2 weeks when it goes live on YouTube. So for just $1 a month American, you can join our Patreon. You can also join it for free. It is my new mailing list. And with that, I will stop the recording and thank everybody for coming. So again, if you're watching the video later, please leave your questions under the YouTube video. Leave comments and questions. It really helps us in the algorithm, and give us that thumbs up. Thanks, everybody. See ya.